Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of October the 31st and November the 6th, 2022. We have a very powerful sky from so many different perspectives because there is the biggest energy, which is Mars going retrograde at the very beginning of this week, and we're definitely going to be feeling this because this is in the sign of Gemini, so it immediately affects our communication, our mental state, if that even makes sense, because that is how we might experience physically, or better said, palpably, on first hand, this Mars retrograde, where our mind kind of shifts into a different gear, which at first might not feel necessarily under our control, because Mars goes retrograde under a very strong aspect where it squares Neptune. So the mental distractions and where our unconscious might be a little bit protruding, if that even makes sense, where memories and certain thoughts just shoot up from deep within us and we don't know why, how. On one hand, this has a very practical utility to it because this is one of those energies where you kind of forget something, a date, a time, a person, a birthday, something like that, and you're doing something, and all of a sudden your unconscious shoots up a flare, and you remember in the middle of it. Doesn't even make sense how you remember, but you remember. And that is very helpful because in the spur of the moment, immediately you go and do whatever. But that can also act the opposite way where you need to be focused and concentrated and it's just not happening. So we need to get used to this Mars retrograde uh beginning, so to speak, because this is gonna last until the 12th of January. So Mars retrograde begins on the 30th of October and it ends on the 12th of January 2023. So it's gonna stay with us for some time now. And also, when I say 12th of January, it's not going to end immediately because it will still have to go through its shadow path. So, even if it will be different, but some elements of this larger Mars retrograde season, how it plays out in our individual lives, but also collectively, politically, let's say, it will definitely stay with us until March. So, something like that next year. So this is the beginning, so we can expect communications to work differently, reasoning, persuasion, rational approach, common sense, down to earth matters to also work, let's say, slightly differently. We may experience a bit of miscommunication and, blockages, but these, just as I said, prepare the themes and the subjects for what this Mars retrograde has to ultimately fix. And as every retrograde, there are a lot of elements coming from the past. For example, people who you kind of met, new people in 2021, 2022, under the Gemini energies when, a lot of inner planets were in Gemini. For example, just in the summer, the Sun, and naturally Mercury was also in Gemini. Venus was in Gemini. So we had a lot of Gemini activation, but in 2021, nodal activity and eclipse in Gemini. So yeah, and this Mars retrograde kind of sorts all of that energetic mental hoarding, including relationships, including people, how we think about certain people, especially the new people. This is where they will show a different side to them, and this is when we have to kind of decide if we want to keep them or not. Adapting to relationships, people, is also a big theme here. Can we adapt or can we not? Is adaptation worth it? Or is it just, making things that much more complicated without real utility in it? This also affects Gemini contracts. This also affects decisions, preferences, options. When people who are very, very steered by their options and preferences might find themselves to be very, very different under this Mars retrograde, and this difference is going to stay with them perhaps permanently. So a lot of change is in the air. So Mars prepares us mentally. And as I said, people, elements from the past, contracts, legal decisions, agreements, promises, anything that we have, you know, done at the beginning of 2022, this Mars retrograde has to sort it out. If there is contracts to sign, some feedback, anything like that, we need to really, really sort it out. And this is where it just begins. But there is also a very deeply personal psychological element to it, where the Mars is squaring Neptune. We are figuring ourselves out. That which is ultimately very, very defeating, negative, self-victimizing in the mind will come to the surface, and we will know how to tackle it. We will need to develop a very, very strong sense of discipline, because otherwise this Mars retrograde can steer us in the wrong directions, wrong path, conflicts, misunderstanding. It can really, really block our relationships and communication if we are not embodying our wisest and, as I said, most disciplined self. And speaking about discipline, Saturn by now picking up speed, being direct. So it is, it means business. The the Saturn and Uranus square is still ongoing, and it will get activated because later on in the week, Venus is going to be a part of this configuration. But I'll get to that, later on in the horoscope. And another energy which is extremely influential is, of course, the upcoming eclipse on the 8th of November, a total lunar eclipse in Taurus, with Uranus hand in hand, the North Node being very, very close, the South Node also very active. If I'm not mistaken, activated by Venus, and actually everything, all Mercury, Sun, Venus, they activate the energy of Scorpio strongly. So a powerful release, a powerful completion, a powerful elimination, or perhaps a huge moment of chaos which bursts something new but also eliminates that which we no longer need in our lives. And this elimination, first of all, psychological, because we give up on fate values, for example. A very Uranian eclipse could trigger that. But there can be physical elements where seismic activity, earthquakes, everything that has to do with the earth, but financially and politically also big chaos expected, and we're already feeling this. The Mars retrograde is going to be part of this because it's going to add its own element to media, communication, official communication, politics, diplomacy, agreement, etc., etc. But the eclipse is also going to impact us personally. So a big change, a big moment of both truth but unexpected. And it's deeply, deeply karmic, appealing to the mind. So Mercury, where we can rationally understand why things happened in our lives and how, why, where did we go right, for example. And this is ultimately deeply transformative. This is where we might see mistakes and bad choices in our lives totally differently, because this is, very, very strongly. But all of this is for the 8th of November and after. This week prepares us for all of this. So it means the starting elements of the eclipse, whatever, energetically at least, are already setting up. Now, yet another very big energy that adds to the karmic aspect of this, it multiplies it 10 times, if not more, is Jupiter finally retrograding back into its home sign of Pisces. Here to finish very, very important karmic duties, so to speak, both collectively, especially collectively, because this is the part of the sky where just in April the Neptune and Jupiter and Venus conjunction took place. So all of these planets are in position to show a different side of. So This will rock the world, spiritually speaking, artistically speaking. Jupiter is here to complete its job, everything that the last, this is the type of energy where there is that Bible story where there was, and I'm so sorry that I not very good with names really, an elderly couple who were very, very, very devoted to God, and they couldn't have children, and God promised them children, and they waited, and they're in, if I'm not mistaken, 90 or close to 90. Just that biology functioned a bit differently back then, so that's absolutely okay. Um, and yeah, it happened. Finally, it happened. So the big example, the big moral of this Bible story is that divine timing is different than normal timing. Everything can be lost. Physical reality, the Newtonian laws might tell you there is no way, and this Jupiter can still find a way. So this might be very, very advantageous and feel like a massive, like a soul level sigh of relief for some people who have been waiting many, many years for a completion and they already feel that it's close. But for other people, this is where, if you have been blessed with Jupiter's transit in the sign of Pisces in whatever ways, what have you done with your blessing? How did you invest it in a Piscean way? And this Jupiter will reflect on that. What you've done with your blessings. You could have magnified them, amplified them, shared them, done something very, very beautiful, Venus, with your blessings. Or you could have squandered them. Either way, this Jupiter will tell you what you need to do with your blessings further on, because you can imagine when it will transit in Aries after it goes direct, that's when we need to take a lot of important Jupiterian action. Now, for legal cases, for everything that has to do with justice, and this is where including karmic justice, Jupiter back in Pisces can also amplify this, and naturally mental health and everything that has to do with our soul's well-being. Jupiter, our healing, our regeneration is really in our hands now, because under this strong scorpionic energy and Taurus energy and Pluto and also in Capricorn, and another power player which you will not see right now, Orcus, asteroid Orcus being in the sign of Virgo, ancestral regeneration. Everything in the sky speaks about that we can heal even the unhealable. This is truly a portal for miracles. But every portal for miracles has to be equally a portal for the opposite. You know, so when we feel both in the air, we know that we can choose where to go. So of course we'll go into the miracles. But we really, really need to invest everything that we've got into ourselves, into the, you know, shaping our life stories into what needs to be at this moment, because as I said, Jupiter is here to support us in miraculous ways. There are so very many negative expressions as well of this energy, but why dwell on it? Because I, and I'm so sorry if this seems arrogant, but at this moment, it might be really a choice, because this Jupiter truly manifests, and what we pump into it, we are kind of getting it. So if we're focusing on our doom gloom, our everything that's bad, yeah, it will amplify it. But when we focus on hope, on, as I said, even lost hope or impossible healing, it truly can work in our favor. I'm not saying that it will do it just like that, but I do say that it will give you a big push in the right direction. And for some people, of course, it will do it, depending on your situation. Now, these are the biggest energies. So let's move on to the more relevant. And this week is like this. There are of course key moments, but it just feels like a massive preparation. And the stage is being set up for the eclipse, of course. And let's not forget that the other eclipse, the Scorpio eclipse, is 25th of October, which was that's also at work. So that's also profoundly regenerative. It's a south node eclipse. So we are using the excrement, and I'm so energetically speaking, to nourish the new, just like a plant would. It uses even its own dead parts to give way to the healthy parts, as in to give way to the what it wants to grow ultimately. So yeah, this is definitely part of the alchemical cocktail as well. So we're in between like the anvil and the hammer. These two eclipses are, and it's Uranian, so the surprise is always there, the unexpected, but also a big, big, big personal truth. This is who you are at the heart of your hearts. And this Pluto tells you that if there is something that you not like, if there is something you're not happy with yourself, this is the moment to truly change it. Take the initiative and change it, because, as I said, everything starts in spirit. If you manage to change in spirit, then physical reality or anything cannot do differently. So this is where I want to show you that Venus is getting closer and closer to the south node. So we are going to be feeling this strongly emotionally. A big release. A real big release. Now, the best examples for this are a bit too graphic in not the favorable sense. So I'll try to make it like, when there is like a spot, let's say, filled with pus, and it finally pops, and finally. But use this in a much, much, much more graphic way, because the pus, it comes out. It's finally we're free of it, and this Venus can feel it like, oh, a sigh of relief. Finally, I'm free. Finally, this is where the fact, whatever it is, if it's painful, it's not a problem. Exactly what I used. It's not a problem. Oh, pain is fine. Oh, let it happen finally. And this is what the energy speaks about. So we can imagine that for some people, this is, for example, surgery. Scorpio. The pain. Oh, doesn't matter. Let, and it's done. And yes. And I actually saw this play out in a friend's life, and I would like to wish her dad very, very quick recovery. May this scorpionic energy truly help you. And I want to wish another friend who is going to have a surgery to stay strong, because Mars retrograde is not the best because it's in Gemini for surgery, because the hands and the mind thought and information, second retrograde, second opinion, second guess, second thought, second investigation showed this, second approach. But the eclipses do favor it. For some people, this is the second whatever, and then it's okay. For other people, they have to follow what the karmic powers are influencing them with. If there is a second opinion, a second investigation, a second intervention, or the first one needs a second one, for example, a follow-up, there are many reasons for it which are on the long term very, very positive. So this must not discourage us, because this energy, as I said, is Venus is the heart, the feeling, the value of it, where we evaluated that, well, I want to get the problem fixed. And this is just medical, but you can imagine financial, the debt can be the boss. Low self-esteem. I'm not worthy enough. Um, Physical shame or any kind of shame, guilt, the scorpionic expression, the Medusa. What Algol is in the sign of Taurus ultimately. Well, yeah, and you get rid of it. It finally let's end the circle of shame and guilt and fear. So of course, for some people, this is absolutely wonderful for sexual healing, for but release. First Venus, then the sun comes and conjuncts the south node. The sun, our feelings, our heart, kind of get the picture of the release. Then the whole consciousness, the sun, the ego, and everything, the positive change, that the release is here finally. And then Mercury, the mind. And then you figure out how grateful you are that the things happened the way they happened. When Mercury puts two and two together and sees the bigger picture of why it was necessary for things to happen the way, and the timing and everything. So this aspect ultimately will can show you that the divine is more intelligent than us, and we have a lot of reason to trust it. Because if it ruins our own schedule and timing, maybe it comes with something 10 times better. And this, okay, so all of these planets will conjunct the south node, so whatever it's being released, we're gonna feel it, make it our own, integrate it to the self, understand it, understand it. Then these planets, of course, will oppose the North Node. And this opposition is also very important, because a new direction for the future, based on whatever we release, that's gone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't pull us anymore. Our head is clear for us to Venus, love a different way, value different, value authentic, value simple, value minimal, value just the love, than the sun. Would we, Scorpio, integrate what these new value systems, minimalistic, purged, refined, transformed ultimately value systems within us, the sun? We might find our lives so different, so much easier, so much more pleasurable to us. Less is more. That's the secret of pleasure. And then Mercury, the wisdom, the understanding. How many seek personal goals, and as in secret wise, let's discover the secret of life in this sense, that way, this area of life, that area. That is where we get the big rewards mentally. The wisdom, I've done it, I did it, I'm here. I'm no longer that person. I'm no longer the victim. I'm no longer the aggressor. I'm no longer that. I can be something new. Something Uranus. Authentic to the core. And Pluto here says, well, that's okay. I can make sure that not even external control can stop your authenticity, because I'll ruin and demolish everything that might take away authenticity. And translate this energy collectively. And then you get the collective horoscope. That's it. So even though, look at the squares, the conjunctions, the opposition, very hard aspects. And yet, this is the blessing. This is the bliss, really. This is the wrecking ball on angel wings. So yes, and let's move on. And on the 3rd of November, I would like to wish someone a very happy birthday, Rory. So thank you for being a really good friend. And this is also very important because you can see Venus is conjunct to the degree with the south node and opposing the north node. Later on, of course, Venus and the Sun and Mercury will oppose Uranus as well. So surprise, surprise. This is the element of surprises when big revelations, our feelings are gonna be stirred up, but also, political, financial, because Scorpio's death, earthquake. So how will that play out? But that's also basically the theme of the eclipse. That's very eclipse energy. And oh yes. And I also wanted to highlight that Venus is already starting her square to Saturn. Later on, this will get stronger and stronger, so that will be a T square with Uranus, because she will be opposing Uranus. So we will feel the change strongly, but of course the sun will follow, and that means we feel that the change is already lived, that we're already part of the change. So very powerful times are approaching without a shadow of a doubt. So this is where the sun is also holding the conjunction. Oh, sorry. I went a little bit way ahead. So yeah, the sun is also conjunct the south node, and Venus is here. She is already squaring Saturn opposing Uranus. So towards the end of the week, we are going to be feeling this very strongly, emotionally, and maybe financially as well. This is where whatever it is that we have to do to readapt financially, to readapt in love, to readapt in our relationships, to readapt with, how we live the new. It begins in the heart, then in the integrity basically of the being. And this Mars retrograde is going to rewire our mind to suit this new reality. As uncomfortable, full of crisis, full of eclipse energy it is, it's still on the long term, this is what we need. Something must shock us into the new way of life, because we're all of us are living the old, and not by want, by this is how it is what it is. But when the astrological clock ticks, that the new comes through, as when there's a, I'm not sure, like dam, or where the water is blocked by a massive bridge type of thing. When the water is, you know large in mass enough, or there is some kind of force pushing it, it will push through. If not, it will corrode through, so it still comes through. And this is where there's no stopping the water coming through. The wall was strong and good and whatever, but this is where it's time. It's time for big things. So yeah, needless to say, to predict what might happen is ridiculous because of Uranus. Uranus is retrograde, so Uranus is very much alive within us, but all of us at the same time. So in this sense, it still can do what it does direct through us. Of course, with the seismic activities and stuff like that, the Earth changes. That's a bit different, but anything else it can do basically through us, through our technology, through our awareness or lack of our awareness, So yeah, Uranus is gonna be extremely extreme. So this can also mean eruptions of spirit, of moods, of Taurian stuff. I had enough, and people do unexpected things in masses, for example. So behaviorally, people are gonna be different, and we are gonna, because we are gonna be different. So we might surprise ourselves in so very many different ways. But again, what I say, this is just a preparation. So this might reflect in a more minor way this week in our lives, but it does reflect in conversations, in, as I said, decisions, preferences, inner chaos, outer chaos, and again, some big decisions or some big actions or inactions to quit something, for example, or to terminate something that we have been delaying. This is where life says there's no delay. This is, you have to do it by. So it's very uncomfortable, but we need this. And as I said, this Jupiter also gives us the power to choose, to decide, to make it our own. We decide what it's gonna be for us in very many different ways. And looking at the asteroid configuration, Eris squaring Pluto, that's very, very, very intense. And you can see that Eris squares Black Moon Lilith and Pallaseth conjunct Pallas Athena. Now, this means that emotional manipulation, pulling wool over eyes, and anything like that doesn't work now, because Eris holds the gold apple. Eris holds the divine truth, and she throws it in chaotically. The illusion, the feelings, they don't work. Neither with the self, neither with others. This is where everyone kind of has to be upfront. And the Mars retrograde, that will cause a lot of chaos because everyone will show their true self. And this is where, speaking about Orcus, Ceres conjunct Orcus, this is where we're gonna feel it deeply in the gut. And as I said, ancestral regeneration. This week we are gonna be craving weird foods. Fruits, vegetable, just, you know, things, nutrients out of different foods. And we will be wise to listen to what our cravings, like for example, this is definitely where we crave fast food because that's not part, that's addiction. This is where we have to crave certain, like the type of sour from the lemon, like this type of, so you crave the lemon really. So, and that's where our bodies just draw in what we need. Or for example, you have this unshakable thought that maybe I should buy a pack of multivitamins. And that's like your body telling you that that pack of multivitamins, which you've used, I don't know when, it had exactly what it kind of hit the spot. So, yeah, how this works differently for different people, but this is where what we're craving or where our, preferences want to be fixated on something that means something to us, and not just culinarily, but the nutrient in it, our body wants it because it wants to use it. So, yes, and of course, Pluto, and now Pluto's official name is Pluto Charon because it is a system. For example, just like Orcus's official name is Orcus One, and even astrologically, it does make, you know, a bit of a difference. And Charon might be right now the star of the show because Day of the Dead is approaching. So Charon's uh, task list is maximum. It's full. He's working overtime because, of course, in many many cultures in the world, he has to guide the souls of the dead back home for a few hours or maybe a day to, unite with their loved ones and accept their light, the flowers, the offerings. So, of course, and the Scorpio South Node and Venus, Sun, Mercury meeting the South Node is also very in tune right now with this Samhain, Halloween, Day of the Dead, Day of All Souls, or whatever, because that is exactly what it means. How beautiful, how perfectly orchestrated astrologically for us to benefit from this energy that South Node can invoke the past, invoke almost, make us relive it, and Venus, the beauty of it, and Orcus, our closest relatives, are a bit alive within us, not just as fantasy and memory, but our bodies and theirs. For example, your mom. You are literally her body continuing to be alive. So we are also going to be reminded of this in perhaps the most delightful, beautiful, pleasurable, pure ways. Maybe this Day of the Dead is going to be extra special because there are going to be a lot of deeply beautiful moments when the ancestors truly honor us back. This is where we might find that when we give our offerings or whatever, they already prepared offerings for us. So this Samhain, Halloween, Day of the Dead is gonna be extra special in the most loving ways, because you can imagine that Venus will start trining Neptune. That will be beautiful. And for a lot of people, this will be even those who could never ever feel the spirit or the souls of their parted ones. Maybe they will be given a small glance, once in a lifetime opportunity now. Especially, for example, atheists or people who reject the spirit. These people might have a moment of unique and once in a lifetime blessing, because the spirit is that benevolent at this time. So yes, of course, portal of miracles, inheritance, where appreciation, gratitude, and love is reciprocated even from beyond. This can be a very, very beautiful energy, and alchemically speak, and with the eclipse. So yeah, for some people it's gonna be deeply magical, where it is exactly the ancestors, those who are beyond, who gonna, how should I say, make everything be alright. Cause you are their work ultimately, aren't you? All of us are. And if you know the meeting of Saturn and Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, January 12th of January 2020, that kind of taught us how to appreciate work, our work, the work of others, the work of the divine. It taught us deep, deep, deep appreciation of sacrifice, of time, of gestures, of truth, and it taught us, but it also taught our ancestors through us. So maybe they come to us this year transformed themselves, moralized by our own lived experience. That meeting of Pluto and Saturn and Ceres and the Sun and Mercury was not important all that much in our physical material world. Its true importance was beyond, over there. That was their day. That was their time of truth. When it is them who got their truth, their justice, their change, what they have worked and sacrificed for. And when I say them, well, everyone who walked this planet since the last meeting of Saturn and Pluto 15, 17 or 18. That 500 plus years. That's wow. So those souls over there, time is there's no time really over there. So why not? Got something. They achieved something. So you can imagine that immediately, not you know, immediately, not in a week, not in immediately, it reverberated in our world. And at that moment, we had Mars opposing Uranus, Mars in Scorpio. So that also triggered. So, anyway, what happened over there is the big deal. That's how we know that it has to reflect here as well. A lot already reflected, but the rest, the regeneration, the recuperation, the hope for new life and new beginning part also has to reflect in our world. And this is the moment where, again, I highlight this. Venus, Sun, Mercury, the South Node, the tail of the dragon, the heart, the consciousness, and the mind meets it. So it pulls us forward. If we grab on, lash on to the tail when the dragon flies, it quantum leaps us. We're not at the head, so we don't know exactly where it is going, but we trust it. We trust Uranus, so we trust it. And it is our ancestors that are that tail that we grab. It grabs onto us because it says, daughter, son, whoever you are, let us take you to the future that we also wish for you, because we live in the greatest illusion of our existence and our lives has always been that it's about us, and that our bodies, our lives, our work, our soul's calling is our own. No. It is more of your grandmother, grandfather, ancestors who kind of produced your physical body, your vessel, especially if you come from a family where you're not a stray child or you, because that has a massive karmic continuity. So you're not your own, sorry. No, 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 no. You belong to the purpose because the vessel was offered to you. You took it, so you have to do. Now, souls who found this disrupted, for example, you don't know your parents or your family bye bye, or as tragic as that might have been for the human being that you are, maybe that was the only way your soul could achieve for life to be your own, truly your own, no one else's, for you not to work for your ancestors. For example, some people felt this through politically, where the political configuration of their homeland disgusted them, and they said, bye bye, ancestors, because this is not me anymore. Neither this is my ancestors, because the living made the work of the ancestors be unworthy anymore. So you can imagine how these wars are really fought in spirit. When people mass migrate from a land, the children of a land mass migrate out of there. That means that something happened in spirit, first of all. There was a war in spirit, and basically, the land lost. So the living will no longer stay in there. Only who are rooted. Who are not rooted will usually migrate away. So, you know, everything first happens in spirit. So when our ancestors are already at the door of the world with gifts, with presents, with bags of coins that they might have collected from us, coins that we send them for them to pay Charon, but we send them so much in excess that they're multimillionaires in love, in the purest alchemical energies over there, and they says, ho ho ho, I have to share this. So yes, some, or better said, every ancestor comes with gifts. So yes, it's gonna be an interesting and very, very important period, like no other Day of the Dead we might have ever experienced. And I do believe that in the most beautiful ways. And you cannot see it here, but asteroid Salacia, the wife of Neptune, is also going to be playing an important part here, because her magic and her way of making us feel through the timelessness of the magic of certain moments, this is where it's going to be really, really. And again, Palacetina conjunct Black Moon Lilith. There is going to be wars, emotional and psychological wars here, but as I said, Eris will change everything. And this means even in spirit. So thank you so much for listening. I do hope that this horoscope helped you. Um, if you'd like to support me and what I do, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you everyone for all the love, all the appreciation, all the beautiful comments. Until